This is Jonathan Ferguson, the Keeper of Firearms and Artillery at the Royal Armouries Museum in the UK, which houses a collection of thousands of iconic weapons from throughout history. And on this week's episode, we are once more looking at the weapons of Hotdogs, Horseshoes and Hand Grenades with some of the game's more rare and peculiar firearms.
Don't throw the Johnson on the floor is something I never thought I would say.
If you want to see more of Jonathan reacting to the varied arsenal of H3 VR, make sure to subscribe, check out the previous episodes we've done on the game, and be sure to let us know in the comments what other games or guns you'd like to see on the show. Right, over to Jonathan and some of the rare weapons of Hotdogs, Horseshoes, and Hand Grenades.
This looks like the sort of middle variant of the G11. Yes, it's marked ACR, so this is the Advanced Combat Rifle, the US Advanced Combat Rifle version of the German Heckler & Koch G11. Caseless, wind-up rifle. Not quite wind-up, but you do have to turn that mechanism to cock it. We don't have a G11, very sadly. I've been to the WTS collection in Koblenz in Germany and seen more G11s than I could dream of, which was wonderful. You see the magazine recoiling there? That's part of the mechanism. Do not ask me to explain the mechanism. It is insane. And all the fire modes are there. You've got the ordinary slow rate of fire. You've got your hyper burst, super fast, short, limited burst, and you've got semi as well. So for the user, the back end of this gun was supposed to come off and go and be rebuilt after X many rounds. I don't know how many rounds it would have had. The American ACR program came to basically nothing circa 1990. West Germany persisted with the G11 and refined it still further into an even blockier shape than this, and was on the cusp of introducing it, which would have been a really interesting time for us small arms enthusiasts. But with the reunification of the two Germanys, the money was not there, and we ended up with the G36, both involving lots of polymer, which I think has been well rendered here. But the G11 is a sort of like a Swiss watch made out of stamped bits of sheet steel inside that receiver. You don't want to see in there. And of course, correctly, no cases come out of the weapon. I'd be disappointed if they did. I mean, this thing still looks science fiction today. It was the most radical small arm design of the 20th century. I think it's probably safe to say, given that most firearms in the 20th century operated on essentially Victorian principles: the self-contained metallic cartridge, blowback operated, gas operated, recoil operated. This was all technology that the Victorians were capable of, even if they didn't fully realize it. But a fully polymer bodied, caseless, select fire hyper burst rifle with an optic. I mean, put a Picatinny rail on the top of it and put it into production and it would still be high tech today. This little thing rings a vague bell, but I don't remember what it's called. We haven't got
the Zip 22.
Oh, good lord. Yes. I remember some interesting videos of this a few years ago. Yeah. Does have a cyberpunk look to it, especially with the extended magazine. Like, there's not a huge amount I can usefully contribute to this. This is if I remember rightly, it's just a blowback 22 in pistol form. Oh, hello. I don't remember anyone attaching it to an AR, but there we go. Maybe you could. And a drum mag. Why not? I remember the little push rod cocking lever directly in front of the barrel. Seemed like a bit of a choice. It's like the school bully and the school bully's mate behind him going, yeah. Still, you don't want to get shot by multiple rounds of 22. Oh no, don't do that. Stop doing that. That's silly. It's an exhibit gun. Still, it does illustrate the freedom that this sort of sandbox VR game in particular lets you have. It's just like, if it's physically possible in the real world, it should be possible in the game, and they're not far off. So those are, I believe, higher capacity Ruger 1022 magazines for the much more sensible Ruger 1022 rifle. It does mean that presumably any Ruger 1022 magazine will fit these things, including the little tiny rotary 10-rounder that basically makes it one like a polymer brick, but too wide to be concealable, really. Not very ergonomic. I don't remember what the market was supposed to be for this, but I'm not sure it ever found it. But it is now preserved forever in digital form. Right. I have seen this type of Derringer Pepperbox because it is kind of a combination of the two. Very sadly, we don't have one. We have the back half and the front half on different guns, effectively. We have lots of Pepperbox revolvers, and this is a real gun that this is based upon. It's just not one that we have. It's like, it looks like a pocket minigun and is very cute, and I'd like to get one day for the collection. In case you're wondering, Pepperbox is a mid-19th century term for a revolver that doesn't have a fixed barrel in front of its cylinder. The cylinder is the barrel, and so called because a pepper shaker or pepper box has multiple holes in it, and you shake pepper out of it. Just in case anyone had missed the comparison, we don't call them pepper boxes anymore.
Anton, the developer that's behind H3VR, asked me to note that he had to beat the Sosig, the sausage enemy, the Sosig to death because it was easier than killing them with 22 short fired out of a 4cm barrel.
That's fair enough, and that's realistic. Very low power rounds. We're not talking 2.2 long rifle here. We're talking 2.2 short, which is significantly less powerful. Don't throw the Johnson on the floor is something I never thought I would say. We'll avoid any obvious jokes. Here is one of our Johnson model 1941 rifles. Sort of a rival to the M1 Garand, and sort of failed, except that the US Marines did have some. So it did see some use. Very intriguing magazine feed, as you can see, very well represented there in the game, with a sort of wraparound U-shaped feed going on, and a reciprocating barrel being recoil operated, which does mean that when you stab someone with the bayonet, which we're fortunate enough to have as well on this one, very pointy, the whole thing is going to retract slightly, which is going to be a little bit off-putting. Not as off-putting as being stabbed with 7 inches of steel, but off-putting nonetheless. So a really cool, relatively rare, but did actually see use, historic firearm. And we're blessed to have several of these, and the machine gun, Johnson-like machine gun as well. Now, this is one that people might not have come across. Really very interesting. The M6 survival rifle. We've got one here. Very, very small. I think you can tell that from the scale in the game. Push button there. And lift up. And you have an ammunition container for 2.2 long rifle and 410 shotgun rounds. So everything you need is kept on the weapon. And just like we're seeing there, lift up the latch there and it folds in half for convenient stowage. You can see the breeches there. 2.2 on the top, 22 on the top, and 410 on the bottom. Smoothbore 410 shotgun. And it is what it says on the tin. This is a significantly more pokey, as we say in the UK, than 2.2 long rifle. So it's the 22 Hornet round, and you see that faithfully represented here. It's not quite, well, it's nowhere near 5.56, but it's much closer to that than 2.2 long rifle is, and you can see that from the design of the cartridge. Bottleneck, long case, pointy bullet, case, jacketed, and it's for survival, literally. It's very, very compact, and it's for aircrew to be able to hunt with. Rabbits with the 2.2 Hornet, birds with the 410 shot rounds, I guess. Also protects you from things like snakes. So you pull up for 2.2 Hornet, cock it, fire it, and then you push the plunger down, and that moves the firing pin down to enable you to shoot the 410 round. So you get 2 shots, 1 of each, and then it's a case of very hastily break it open and reload it and hope that that bear doesn't just rip your face off. Now, I was fortunate enough to see this for the second time a few weeks ago when I visited Springfield Armory Museum in the United States, and they have this on display. This is a stamped sheet metal 1911. I mean, it's a completely different gun, essentially. It has internal components in common, but everything else, the trigger and hammer included, is a completely new design. It's just operating on the same principle, uses the same magazines and cartridge, obviously, just to see if it was worth mass producing ultra cheap pistols made out of welded sheet metal. The Germans did the same thing, but they did it when they really didn't have the resources to be doing it. This was the Volkspistole, so they were going to arm the population with, among other things, sheet metal pistols, and they put in an awful lot of design and development. The Americans simply translated the 1911 design sideways into sheet metal. It worked, it was fine, but there was really no need to mass produce sheet metal 1911s. But again, very cool to see it in the game. We will never get one of these, almost certainly, for obvious reasons.
Am I right in saying that it was built by the same manufacturers as the Liberator, another sheet metal pistol?
Yeah. So the Guide Lamp division of General Motors. So they were there. They made sheet metal lamps, among other things. So yeah, it's like a Gucci Liberator, very Gucci. Because one shot out of a smoothbore barrel is nowhere near as good as a longer rifle barrel, just like a 1911. This would do exactly what a 1911 would do. A concept we sort of see today with pistols like the High Point pistol. Now, they're not made out of sheet metal. It's no longer economically that cheap to make things out of sheet metal. It's made out of cast, zinc, alloy, and polymer. But it's the same idea, an ultra cheap self-loading pistol for those without much in the way of money. Okay. There's something funky going on with that WA2000. Different cocking handle. See it behind me there. It's very heavy. You'll forgive me not picking it up. We've used it in previous videos. This must be a different variant. Different shaped stock. Different cocking handle. Very different shaped stock, actually. Still a thumb hole, but the proportions are completely different. The magazine housing area is different.
I know this is based on the second variant that Walther produced.
Yeah, makes sense. I don't know how many of those were made, but the one you'll typically see is this one behind me. That flange there, that handrest on the bottom of the pistol grip, is something you'll see on the PSG-1, the HK PSG-1. So I don't know if that was an attempt to mirror that feature or if it's coincidental. But yeah, I tend to forget that there was an improved WA2000. It's lighter, clearly. It's lacking some of the girder and additional stuff on the front. Different muzzle device, just a flash hider on this one. These are very rare guns in either configuration, but especially the earlier type, I gather. I think I prefer the original design just for how spacey it looks. This looks almost a little bit conventional, almost, relatively speaking. What's always fun with VR games, especially accurate ones like this, is you actually get that eye relief, eye box thing where, depending where your virtual head is, you get a clear view of the scope, with the slight exception that obviously when your eye is directly behind the scope like that, you don't see as much of the real world. And one eye shut. Interesting how many players actually close one eye in VR when they're using a scope. I found myself doing it in Sniper Elite VR for sure.
I try and do it, but I'm not very good at holding one eye closed. My dreams of being a hitman over.
You just need a custom sniper rifle, Dave. Don't worry about it. Thanks for watching, guys. Good to return to H3 VR with some less cursed guns. Hints of cursedness in there, but I think all based on real stuff, which is really nice. Rare stuff, some stuff we even have, which is really, really good to align those two things. Rare firearms and well-made video games. That's what we like. Please do check out the Royal Armouries website, new website, and our various social media outlets, our YouTube channel. But whatever you do, join us here again on GameSpot for more Expert Reacts next week.